Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today I want to talk a little bit about some Season 2 information delivered to us by Doctor Who Filming Locations, who is a Doctor Who Twitter account who goes to the filming and documents it for us. He did a little breakdown of the trailer of his own, which I also did on the channel, and you can watch that if you haven't already. But he did a thread basically putting together which parts of the trailer fit with each episode that he's seen be recorded. And this reveals some interesting insights. So I wanted to go over it, so subscribe if you're new, that'd be greatly appreciated. We're literally like 3 subscribers away from 25,100. So literally if like any of you subscribe now, chances are we'll probably make it today. So if you could do that, I'd love you forever. But let's just get right into it. So this is the thread by Doctor Who Filming Locations I'm talking about. And it's literally what it says on the tin. It's going through screenshots of the trailer and saying which episodes he thinks they're a part of. Now this might not be 100% accurate, but given Doctor Who Filming Locations' track record, I think it's fairly likely that this is probably pretty accurate. So according to him, episode 1 is the one with the red robots that we've seen. It also features the big city and the opening shot of Gatwa looking confused as the TARDIS malfunctions and Verada Sethu saying, "You need to get me home now." If I had to guess, and he also does substantiate this is probably going to be the light, somewhat fluffy opener in a similar vein to Space Babies. I hope I prefer it to Space Babies, because even though I don't think Space Babies was as bad as some people say, I also don't think it was the best foot to start on for a new era of Doctor Who. But I will say that this looks a bit more traditional sci-fi. I've said before that the robots do give me very Sarah Jane Adventures vibes. This, however, does unfortunately seemingly confirm one thing that I was speculating about, that this city is not in fact on Skaro and is instead unrelated to the Daleks, which I'm a little bit sad about. And as I said, Doctor Who Filming Locations does say as much. The spaceship/saucers in the Season 2 teaser trailer have nothing to do with the Daleks, which I'm sad about because I really want to see the Daleks again. I thought for the longest time that, like, I didn't need them for a bit, but now that it's been a few years, I'm kind of ready to see them again. I kind of want to see Gatwa's dynamic with them, and I'm sure we will in time, but yeah, that's a little bit disappointing to me. But we do have seemingly confirmation of a title from Doctor Who Filming Locations here. Connor here said, they from episode 1, the red robots, and then Doctor Who Filming Locations says, yep, and that title is almost correct, 1 word out. And then Connor says, is it like 2 red robots or something? It's going to be something that ends up in the dialogue. And then It's Bobcat says, the Robot Revolution, and Doctor Who Filming Locations says, ding, ding, ding. So according to Doctor Who Filming Locations, who again, I will say, got the title of Joyce of the World, and I believe Church on Ruby Road before they broadcast, correct? Episode 1 will be called The Robot Revolution, which, yeah, sounds like an alright title to me. It sounds like a Doctor Who title to me. So we have a title confirmation here early on, which is pretty nice to see. But yeah, beyond that, I'm not expecting a groundbreaking episode from this one. I think this will be our kind of soft opener back into the world of Doctor Who following the Christmas special. And I'm okay with that. Episode 2, though, is where things get more interesting. This is apparently the big cinema one that we saw in the trailer, which I think looks absolutely fantastic. Someone actually asks Doctor Who Filming Locations which episodes are written by RTD other than 1, 7, and 8. And Doctor Who Filming Locations says 2 is written by RTD, I think, which makes sense when you consider that he wrote episodes 1 and 2 last year. And also, given that this seems to be another experimental fantasy god-esque episode, which is kind of his overriding arc, so I think it makes sense for him to write this one. I really, really hope that this one lives up to the hype, because I think this animation looks absolutely incredible, and I think it could be like an all-time beautiful Doctor Who episode, just in terms of visuals, and I really hope that the story like backs that up. I have a feeling that, I think this is also the one that's set in the 50s that we've seen filming, judging by the period clothing and the cinema. I mean, we saw them outside some sort of cinema theatre thing in the filming for Season 2. So I'm pretty confident saying, yeah, this is probably the episode 2 one, set in Miami. There's some sort of cinema, that Harbinger is there, and maybe we get like the God of Film or something to that effect. I'm very excited to see how this all pans out though. But yeah, I'm very excited for this episode. Next episode is episode 3, and this is the one of Verada and Ncuti jumping out of a spaceship onto an alien land. Not really much else to go on for this episode. However, someone did ask Doctor Who Filming Locations what's episode 3 about, and he said, space station on a distant future planet, I think, but don't know much more than that. So I think we can kind of assume that this is our more sci-fi one of the bunch. Again, the structure of this series so far seems very similar to season 1. You've got a light opener, a kind of more fantasy-esque second episode that's maybe, a bit more theatrical, and then the third episode that's more hard sci-fi. And in fact, Doctor Who Filming Locations says the exact same thing. Alon's The Archives asks, based on this thread, 2 to 5 seem like guaranteed bangers. Episode 1 I'm slightly skeptical on. From what I've been told, 1 is the weakest again. Season 2 has a very similar structure of episodes to Season 1, but a very different TARDIS team dynamic. And that also makes sense and excites me because the very first thing we see of Verada in this trailer is her arguing with the Doctor. And one of the big criticisms of the last series was just how well Ncuti and Millie, or Ruby and the Doctor, got on. They were a bit too chummy, so having a Doctor-companion dynamic that is a little bit more kind of hostile, I think would be quite a nice, refreshing change of pace. And actually, I'll be working on like a more full review or like live stream. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it on Joy to the World in due course. But one of the things I do want to say is that one of my favourite scenes in that episode is the scene where the Doctor is breaking down Joy and breaking down her facade and being quite mean about her personally to get her out of this trance that she's under. And it was in that moment where I was like, oh my god, that's a really good Doctor scene. Obviously, I've always bought Get Where's the Doctor, probably faster than I have some others, but that kind of added in a puzzle piece I felt was largely missing for a lot of season 1, and that is the darker edge to the character. So if Verada's character can bring that out more of the Doctor, as opposed to Ruby, who kind of went along with a lot of his fun shenanigans, I think that will be a very good thing. This one is interesting. Episode 4 is apparently that scene of Ruby, Kate, and Rhys Madley's character facing down some kind of alien threat in Unit, which is interesting because, as people have pointed out, this looks a lot more like a finale than it does in episode 4, which is what this person says. To be honest, I was expecting this episode to be 7 and 8, so that's interesting. And then Doctor Who Filming Location says, there are heavy links between 4 and the 7 and 8 finale. So I'm guessing, it's kind of similar to 73 Yards, how, Roderick William tied into the events of Empire of Death, albeit slightly. But what's also interesting about episode 4 is that according to Doctor Who Filming Locations, it's not written by RTD. Chris McKinnon says, I also think episode 4 is written by Scott Hancock or Pete McTeague, to which Doctor Who Filming Locations says Pete McTeague, I think, who obviously wrote Praxeus and Kablam, but also more recently was one of the main creative forces behind War Between Land and Sea, which is the upcoming Doctor Who spin-off. So, we seemingly have a writer also confirmed for one of the episodes of this series, being Pete McTeague. I have somewhat mixed opinions on Pete McTeague. I think his collection box set stuff is fantastic. I think his Doctor Who TV work is less so, but I'm willing to give him a chance because he's under a different showrunner, so he might bring something different to the table that we've not seen him do before. Obviously, it is worth noting that Russell said that there are 4 new writers for this series in a previous Doctor Who magazine column. So if we assume this is correct and that episodes 1, 2, 7, 8 are Russell, episode 4 is Pete McTeague, that leaves episodes 5, 6, and 3, which is only 3 episodes. But it could be a writing duo writing one of them, like what we saw with Rogue, which is interesting. I still think this will have an overall better balance of old and new writers than season 1 did. But it's interesting to think that, 4 new writers are going to be there, yet there's only 3 episodes for them to write. It's just an interesting thing. Episode 5 is apparently this one of them kind of dangling out of buildings and Ncuti kind of floating through space here. I don't have much else to really add to this one other than interesting. And then Alex here says, it looks like some sort of stadium or arena behind Ncuti, possibly from the Eurovision in Space story, hence the different haircut. I wonder if the shot of Mrs. Flood with the opera glasses is from episode 6 too. Yeah, that's interesting. We don't have any kind of real knowledge of episode 6, 7 or 8 from this trailer, according to Doctor Who Filming Locations, which I'm glad about. I'm glad that they've kept most of the footage to the earlier part of the series, leaving a lot more of the spoilery stuff for later on. As I said in the previous video, I'm quite excited for season 2. I do think it looks like a change of pace from the first season, a little bit darker, a little bit more kind of what I was hoping for from Russell. So I hope it delivers. Obviously, structurally, judging by this, it looks pretty similar, but the tone will be the thing that makes the difference. What I'm kind of hoping for is that if season 1 was RTD2's New Hope, then Season 2 is R2-D2's Empire Strikes Back, which takes a lot of the basic ideas built up in the previous installment, but kind of builds on them and kind of gives them dark twists and stuff. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Obviously, I'm not asking for Black Mirror, I'm not asking for super, super dark. I just want a little bit more edge, you know? That's something I would like to see, is a little bit more edge, because as much as I liked Season 1, my favourite parts of it were things like Dot and Bubble and 73 Yards. Bits where it was a bit more offbeat and almost uncomfortable at points. That's the stuff I found most appealing about it. And if we can get more of that in Season 2, I will be a very happy bunny. But what were your thoughts on this information on Season 2? Let me know down in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later.